Hello and welcome to day 15 of Bondcember. I am Tom.
I'm Joe. Hey
Yeah.
kids, do you like normal ass movies?
Do you like basically just a basic thriller
Yeah.
in mostly Greece?
Welcome to the John Glenn era of Bond movies.
Yeah, this is like the polar opposite of Moonraker.
Yeah.
This is grounded in surprisingly dull reality.
Yeah. I told you this was going to be Whiplash after you watched Moonraker, and I wasn't lying.
Oh god, it's like very much sort of like, oh, oh, crazy escapism. We're going around somebody who wants to steal some missiles. Okay.
All right, we're
And grounded reality and no sort of outlandish villains trying to sort of eugenically change the world.
we have the Greek underground working against each other to try to figure out who is the actual bad guy.
Yeah. For 2 hours and a bit.
But, yeah.
Oh,
And
so
um,
yeah, I'm very with this. I'm sort of like, it almost over course corrects. I think this
yeah.
it sort
It,
of
it
goes
is.
too far in the opposite direction because this is it's good. It is good in places, but it feels like a complete trudge in others. And like by the time it gets to its last fourth, it is just like, please let this movie end. Please let this end.
Yeah.
Please stop. Please
It
finish.
picked the worst kind of finale setup they could have gone for.
Like this is underwhelming. Like if you thought, Man with the Golden Gun is worse. This is a close second.
Yeah.
So yeah. This
Well,
time.
I don't think you at this point you have seen the other more, so I'm gonna pull that off. But it is a movie I do not know how to feel about.
Oh, definitely. It's gonna sound really strange. This feels like less of. This feels like I don't really have much to say about this because it is just there and it's solid, but it's a really uninteresting, really workmanlike, except for a couple of sequence, solid.
Yeah, I mean, and there's good stuff about it, and it's really well done for what it does. But what it's trying to do is very underwhelming. And it's just like I've been watching a lot of Siskel and Ebert stuff, so I'm going to go back to that again.
Yeah.
But it's just like they had a review of this one, and they gave it 2 thumbs up. But then I looked into Roger Ebert's review; he gave it 2 stars out of 4, and that's which is it's very clear he didn't like it. It's like, and he said what it does well, but it just kind of like feels like a tired, uninteresting movie. Where Gene Siskel liked that it was going back to this kind of textual reality, and it feels like an actual film.
Yeah.
And it definitely does that, but
It feels like a rather uninteresting. I mean, even
Yeah.
when you compare it to the sort of more grounded stuff of Connery, it just feels, Connery's world and Connery's Bonds was still like, yeah, he does grounded stuff, but you get these really outlandish characters doing it.
yeah.
And,
You do get one outlandish character a little bit, which Topol,
yeah,
who is the Fiddler on the Roof. He's the guy who mostly got his fame from Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
He was the main guy, and he got all the attention. He got all the acclaim for doing this. And then he started getting a film career. And he is a very theatrical actor, and it shows. And it really shows in the other movie he did in the early 80s, Flash Gordon.
oh god, yeah, and
Where he is the doctor. And it's like, for God's sakes, strap yourselves down.
yeah,
He's not quite that bad, but he is certainly playing a character who is a quote-unquote character.
yeah, and including his sort of character, sort of basically he eats pistachios throughout the film, and he's bizarrely
That's
enough
his thing.
he's named after the guy who basically created some of the best Ferraris because Fleming liked Ferraris.
Yeah.
And
So
it's very much sort of there are interesting characters in this, and I feel in a more interesting or a more dynamic Bond, because you get Melina, who's played by Carolyn Bouquet, who is this very vengeful and far more proactive female character compared to a lot of the other ones. She has her own motives. She wants to basically kill the film's main villain, who is Julian Glover's Aristotle Christatos, who is obviously the main villain, and was actually shortlisted as a possible Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an interesting figure, and interest. Yeah. But it's like, and she's obviously she's a very proactive Bond, girl compared to even like, some of the better Bond girls. She at no point does she really become a damsel in distress. She is a very proactive and actually quite violent figure.
Yeah.
And
on this, then on the same end, she doesn't have much of a presence.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember much of what she says. It's most of what she has to say is like pulp revenge dialogue.
Oh god, yeah. It's very much sort of like she's just sort of there, and it's the problem. The problem is with it is very much the plot with this is basically there is this a ship sinks with this system on board, which basically communicates and coordinates Polaris, which was basically a 70s nuclear weapon platform sort of thing. And it's like, okay, this is now sunk somewhere in the Ionian Sea. Right, better go and get it before the Soviets get it. Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
Right.
And Bond is right in the middle of this, Grecian underground a bunch of people who are trying to get it and sell it. And, he doesn't know who the good people are, and he doesn't know who the bad people are. Initially, Christados is introduced as, the person who is helping him. And what Christados is really doing is getting rid of this other guy, Milos Colombo, who is, his rival. There's an interesting interplay about it. I mean, it's very obvious who the villain is.
Yeah. It's like, who could it be? This lovable rogue who eats pistachios, or this guy?
This guy who seems proper, but there's, he keeps a underage Olympic skater in his charge.
And played by Lynn Holly Johnson, who was a figure skater, and it's like, okay, we'll get somebody.
It's the source of the most awkward parts of this movie, because
an underage girl hitting on then 40-something Roger Moore.
Yeah, and Moore, who is beginning to show his age.
Yeah,
and it is very awkward, and even Moore knows it's awkward. It's like, to Roger Moore Bond credit, he is like, I want nothing to do with this. But she is more hot for him than he is for her, and she is not letting it go. And then he falls into this web of stuff where he doesn't know, and then there's a Eastern Bloc Olympian I think it's triathlon,
biathlete. He was this sort of sinister KGB sort of agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like this is part of the problem with the film. It goes, we have this guy, Kriegler, Aristotle, this other character called the Dove, who is this sinister underworld figure. Hector Gonzalez, who's a Cuban hitman hired by Christophorus to kill to kill Melina's parents.
Yeah, and it's
like,
all
way too many characters.
Way too many villains, and all of them are fine. I mean, they are, when they make their presence, just fine. But it's just, there's not enough of them. Like you have, the blonde guy with the octagonal glasses, which they figure out who he is through early 80s facial recognition technology that is just silly beyond the one silly part of this movie. Well, maybe beyond the when he goes to an ice rink and Bond gets jumped by a hockey team.
Yeah, and then proceeds to beat the crap out of them. It's even got Charles Dance, which I didn't even recognize Charles Dance in this. Apparently, he is one of the associates of our octagonal glassed friend. I didn't even recognize him. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, when Charles Dance is on your henchman of the henchmen. There are too many people in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at obviously the list of characters on this, and it's like 90% of them are villains. And then you have the bald villain.
Yeah.
Oh boy, this is the goofiest sequence in this entire film, which is here. We're gonna go from Bond mourning his wife in this sequence that, bizarrely enough, actually, as I think I mentioned to you, is shot down the road from where I live. It's about 10-15 miles from where I live. It's in Buckinghamshire, because obviously Pinewood themselves are based in Bucks, and most of and from this we go, oh, Bond, this helicopter has arrived for you to take you to this place. Okay,
your thing.
Okay, fine.
But it gets taken over by Blofeld, of all fucking people.
But it's not Blofeld, because it's definitely not Blofeld, because we're not allowed to call him Blofeld because of the Thunderball controversy, which we will get on to next episode, because, oh god, Sean Connery's back.
Yeah.
It's it's definitely not Blofeld. It's a man who's bald and in a wheelchair and stroking a cat, but it's definitely not Blofeld. And
then they have this, it's an effective scene, and it's fine. It just does not belong in this movie. It's just they had to have it because otherwise there's no way else to introduce Bond into the movie. And it's just
it's got to be doing something.
And it's just this is not the first John Glenn movie where you'll be watching and it's wait, am I watching the right movie?
And then
watching a Bond movie here?
And then he dumps Blofeld down a chimney.
After Blofeld promises to buy him a delicatessen.
In perhaps the strangest line in the entire Bond series. Please,
I'll buy you a delicatessen!
No, I'm afraid not, Blofeld, for you see, I already have one. Doing. Oh dear, and it's
that's where the slide whistle needed to be, not in The Man with the Golden Gun.
And the other thing is this bizarrely enough, as I think I mentioned here, this is Jeremy Bulloch in it. Now, obviously, you may recognise that name. Jeremy Bulloch is actually played Boba Fett, and he's in this. He's also in the Spy Who Loved Me as a Submariner, and it's
okay,
hang on a minute, I recognise that face. Oh my god, that's Jeremy Bulloch. What is he doing? There's
a lot of that in the James Bond movies. The guy who played the professor in Rocky Horror being in The Spy Who Loved Me, and then, being Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, it's very much sort of
To my memory, Donald Pleasance was not in a previous Bond movie before he was in Blofeld.
No. And it's just
otherwise, is that a thing they just do?
It's we're going to put you in this. Okay, fine. But no, it's the tone of this is strange. It's it at once does the typical Bond stuff and does this really big sort of grand, and there are some really good sequences. There's a really good sequence where Kriegler chases Bond, and it's this is a proper, really well done sequence where they get chased around by these motorcyclist guys, and it's really well done, and it feels very much they've taken a look at the sequence from On Her Majesty's Secret Service and goes, how do we do that but more, because it goes on forever, that sort of chase sequence.
It is a really big scene. When I first watched this movie, my mom was in the next room. She was doing schoolwork in the background, and she was just paying attention to what the scene was going through the music, and she's like, Joe, is that scene still going? It's yeah. And it's a really well done scene. I mean, it's kind of, again, it does play on the On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where they go straight through they're combining different sequences of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where they go through the Olympic Village and they're doing everything at once. But it's really well done. And what I think works, I think they had an idea for all of the action sequences in this movie where James Bond is at a disadvantage. And at a complete disadvantage. Like, they go out of their way to make sure James Bond is underarmed, underprepared, and undermanned to be able to stop these things,
including the Bond, the sort of the worst Bond car in existence, which is a Citroen C2. And he gets chased by, like, obviously, you know, typical Bond villain cars in a little dinky yellow Citroen, which you could get which you can get a die-cast toy of, because why not?
Why not? But,
and even so, it's a really inventive. It's a really inventive chase.
Yeah, because they have to make this so okay. His car gets blown up because it's a security system where they try to enter his car and it just blows up because Q has things that destroys the car, yet he doesn't want them destroyed. I don't get it, but there it goes. His car is destroyed, so he has to use the, Melina's car, which is a dinky little thing. And obviously, they're using cars with much higher horsepower, and they have to figure out their way through it. So they think, like, okay, he's at a disadvantage. How do we work our way through it? And that's why the action sequences, work as well as they do. The problem is they're kind of scenes within themselves, and by the end, they pick kind of the two worst scenes for the climax. I mean, there's one where they're underwater. They are finally trying to get to the plot of the ATAC system, and they're in the sub trying to get it with minimal time. They have limited air because they had this, there's only so much compressed air they can use. And then, this big daddy looking guy comes in with, like, pliers, and they have an underwater fight, and, like, as we've established in Thunderball, like,
underwater
fights are so expensive for so little, and they do the best they can, but then right after that they have to have him have a fight between submarines, where he's undermanned with the submarine that has claws and is totally wrecking his shit, and it's totally causing leaks, and he has to have a fight with that undermanned. And then after the underwater scene, they have the climax, which is rock climbing.
Yeah, a Meteora, which is this. There's a fun thing about this film. So, this film is shot at Meteora, which obviously most people will recognise from that name from the Linkin Park album, which is this big rock formation, basically this really famous rock formation in Greece, and it's basically they have these monks up in Meteora. Who didn't know this film was being shot. So what happened is they basically obviously paid off someone in the in the Greek, probably Greek Eastern Orthodox Church, and went, "Can you let us film?" Okay, fine. These monks weren't told about it, and obviously they're a very very aesthete sort of monastic tradition, where basically all they own is that building, and it's like, no, we're not letting you film here. So they basically sabotage production and stop people landing helicopters, and basically built a monastery. They basically had to resort to building a monastery on another rock.
But so they have to take the villains are up there, and they have it secured down pat, and they have to capture them by surprise by using arrows and stuff like that, and they have to rock climb up.
Which was
it is
done
a
for
very
real.
Excruciatingly slow sequence, and you think they're going to get to it, but then they have to do the incredible stunt where one of the villains discovers Bond and is slowly trying to kick, each piton out and trying to get him to fall. And then you have, obviously a very beleaguered stuntman just free falling.
Mm.
And, you know, it's impressive, but it's not a very good sequence for a, you know, climax. And then once they get to, you know, the shooting and all of that stuff, it's very rudimentary. And it's very, okay, it was all leading up to this. It's like, it kind of feels like a letdown because, you know, you spent all this time building it up to this. And I've actually, I think one time watching For Your Eyes Only, I literally fell asleep during the climax while they were rock climbing. But
Yeah.
you know, it kind of, it's kind of a.
It's a sort of.
This is not going to. It's not the first time I'm going to say this about John Glenn's 5 James Bond movies, but this feels like it was another movie that would have been served a lot better if it wasn't a James Bond movie.
Yeah, definitely. You slap anything else on it, it's like, and then we get to the score, and I hate to say this, For Yours Eyes Only might be the worst Bond song.
Okay.
Like,
I am not going to disagree or fight that. Like, I am like, we have our list to make at the end of this, and we'll get there. And it's just like, well, we'll get there. But it's just like, I like Sheena Easton. Like, Sheena Easton has worked on, like, you know, our other thing is, like, we do nerdy Japanese stuff. And, like, Sheena Easton worked with the composer of Final Fantasy on Lost Odyssey. And, you know, that's, you know, I cannot dislike Sheena Easton. But then I look at this song, and this is the most light FM, boring thing. And I am a person who likes certain light FM. I like extremely cheesy, bad, pastiche stuff.
Oh yeah, that's fair enough.
And this one is just
the rest of this score though is strange. It's like, it's like dance funk.
It still
Bond.
has the cowbell James Bond theme, but it's just like, I don't know. You remember a lot better than I do. Like you're remembering this movie. It's by Bill Conti.
Yeah.
And like, the guy who did Rocky.
And it shows.
Yeah, it is very much a Bond score by the guy who did Rocky, but it's very much in the field of cowbell James Disco Bond theme, even though it's 1981 at this point. But I was fine with it. My brother really likes it, but then again, he really likes Bill Conti's music. He pumps up to the Rocky theme whenever he jogs.
Yeah, which is fair enough. But that sort of the thing is, Conti's music fits Rocky like a glove. Here, it fits like a dustbin bag.
Yeah.
It feels just bizarre. You get this sort of really funky, sort of like, you know, as I said, very typical Rocky sort of music over not very much happening.
Yeah. And then it's very, like, on the nose on some things. Like when Melina's parents get murdered, it's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's like, it's solid, and it's like, it's okay, but it's so small scale, and it's so it's like,
yeah,
it's like, it is the smallest scale Bond. It is basically two sort of Greek gangsters arguing over a weapons guidance system on obviously behalf of, you know, the major powers.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. You know, and it's sort of more interesting as what's going on behind the scenes. You've obviously got, this is the last United Artists Bond film. After that, it will obviously be produced by the company that own it now, which is Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, although obviously we'll go on to the whole Sony ownership of Bond.
Yeah.
It is basically, Moore was considering quitting. This basically, he's done a 3-film contract, and you know, he was starting to show his age, and obviously, as we'll come on to in the next couple of episodes, obviously we will go, yeah, he really, really is starting to show his age now.
Yeah.
And obviously, you start to get other actors sort of looking at. So you got Timothy Dalton, sort of obviously, who will come on to speak about quite a bit later. Michael Billington, who is Agent Triple X's lover, who ironically would have been the first Bond to get killed off by another Bond on screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's sort of like there's more interesting stuff going on behind the scenes than actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's like I said, a normal ass movie, which is I say ass. I don't mean it's super derogatory. It's just like it's a basic thriller, and parts of it work, parts of it don't. It's the only thing is it's in this series of stuff where we had just gone to a moon base to stop. We keep saying moon base, and people will correct us, but
Space
space station where they were going to annihilate the entire population of humanity
to replace them with very attractive people in a horrible, in a terrible eugenic sort of a thing.
It's kind of an ill fit, and it's a fit John Glenn would try to make again. I think, and License to Kill, and we'll get there. But I don't think it's a thing that really fit until they got to Daniel Craig and Casino Royale, where they were really able to fit like the basic thriller stuff with the bigger Bond stuff.
Yeah, and it's solid, but it's just sort of there, and it's sort of the problem is I hate to say it's not terribly exciting, but it was as the last two Bond films have been these high octane sort of very well crafted things to sort of suddenly go to basically this sort of very small scale, very intimate, very sort of downbeat Bond is a little bit too much of a course correction.
Yeah, and it's just okay.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, there are things I really like, and there's the film critic part of me that really likes that it's trying to be an actual movie that works like movies do, and there's like suspense, and Bond has to use his head to get out of situations, and he is undermanned, and he's constantly has to get the upper hand because he is the superior person through intellect and through skill, and there's a part of that, and I can see where they were going with certain things like the rock climbing, where if I don't know if it's just the editing or if it's just the pacing, where there's supposed to be the suspenseful drops, or if I've just seen Tom Cruise fall off too many goddamn buildings in too many Mission Impossible movies, but it just isn't exciting. It's just okay, so that's happening, and it doesn't really have the impact I think they wanted it to have.
Yeah. But yeah, moving on, tomorrow we'll be going far back to the goofier side of Bond. Tomorrow what are we doing, Joe?
We are doing Octopussy a little later.
Yep.
Tomorrow we are doing Never Say Never Again. Okay, so we're getting this straight.
We're getting this straight. We are Sean Connery is back. Oh god, again. For the final time. Hopefully.
Yep. Unless you consider, the EA version video game of From Russia with Love, like the final time, but it's a video game remake of a thing. But anyway, so never say never again.
Yes. Goodbye.
And we are done.
We're done. Hallelujah. I'm just going to press stop on this.
Yep. Well, I think the first one was 20